Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first meeting of 2024. Personally, it's nice to be back with you in person, and I'd like to express my appreciation to the deputy for covering for me during my absence. A happy belated birthday to Councillor Rodriguez. I would remind everyone that we have a drainage meeting at 6 o'clock this evening. And as well, remind and share with everybody, January is Alzheimer's month, and I'm sure everybody knows somebody that's affected by it. It's a terrible disease. And, we need to have compassion for those out there within our society that are fighting it daily. The meeting this evening is being broadcast and recorded. Recordings will be available on the town's YouTube channel. We acknowledge that this land on which we are gathered today is part of the ancestral land of the Chippewa, the Ottawa, and Potawatomi peoples, referred to collectively as the Anishinaabe. It is through the connection of the Anishinaabe with the spirit of the land, water, and air that we recognize their unique cultures, traditions, and values. Together as Treaty people, we have a shared responsibility to act with respect for the environment that sustains, protecting the future for those generations to come. Council, I would ask you to declare a pecuniary interest at the appropriate time if you find that there is one. Item 4 on the agenda, Council will go to this evening. We have a couple special guests to give us a presentation. I'd like to welcome Stephen Turner, Manager of the Lambton County Emergency Medical Services, and Mr. Andrew Taylor, General Manager of Public Health Services with the County of Lambton. Mr. Turner, I believe you're going to be the spokesperson. You may take to the podium, and the floor is yours. You, as the clerk has indicated to you, you have 15 minutes to make your presentation. Are you going to do it, Andrew?
No, not. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry.
Checking. We're just checking that online can see the presentation.
Okay.
I think Jess did. Maybe she didn't hear.
Nettie, can you see that presentation?
No, but I have my agenda.
Okay, she can open it up, right? Yep.
Okay.
Jess can work on getting it shared for the public.
You'd like to go ahead, guys. We'll catch up there.
Okay, so thank you. And just want to put a little bit of context to this presentation for you, Council. So through recent reports to County Council, we've informed this business case with respect to the EMS master plan for the County of Lambton that basically focuses on modernizing the county's land ambulance services. So Lambton County Council accepted this master plan, the report and recommendations at its meeting on November 29th. And they further instructed us as staff to send these reports to the lower tier municipalities for input and feedback by January 31st. So our new master plan that we're going to present to you now, it highlights several key changes that we hope will serve to mitigate the impacts of future pressures that we're facing for increasing call volumes due to an aging population and the anticipated growth in our community. So thank you for the opportunity to present the new 2024 to 2028 master plan to you. And our senior leader here, Mr. Turner, is going to take you through it. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Andrew.
Well, good evening, Mayor Atkinson and members of council. My name is Stephen Turner, as Andrew mentioned. I'm the manager of Lambton Emergency Medical Services. It's my pleasure to present our master plan proposing our path forward for the next 5 years. Prior to provincial downloading in 2000, Lambton County was served by several independent ambulance operators. Lambton County assumed responsibility for delivery of land ambulance services after downloading, amalgamating these services into what is now Lambton EMS. In 2008, Lambton County converted stations that had nighttime callback service to 24-hour service daily. The last strategic plan for the service laid out a path for the period of 2015 to 2019. And in 2022, Lambton County Council approved the addition of 12 hours of daily daytime coverage in Sarnia to address increasing call volumes and workload. Lambton continues to meet its service commitments. However, response times and workloads have been increasing as noticed by staff, the public, and council. In response, staff embarked on an update to the service master plan with the intent to look back on past performance, spot trends, model future demand, and identify opportunities for improvement. These opportunities included workload, response times, efficiency, and wellness. You'll note of the 16 recommendations in the master plan, staff wellness is listed first. This was very intentional as our staff are central to our operations and their well-being should be a foremost responsibility. Without them, we could not possibly do the outstanding care for the community that our team provides day in and day out. The master plan had 3 main objectives: identify any opportunities to improve the use of resources we currently have, identify if our assets were in the right place to best serve the county, and identify if any additional resources were needed to service the demand over the next 5 years. EMS faces several challenges on the road ahead. The most pressing is the fact that our call volume is increasing at a pace that's 24 times the growth of Lambton's population. With an annual call volume growth of 5.9%, over the next 5 years, the service demand will have increased by almost 30%. The lower gray line on this graph would be our demonstration of what our call volume would be if service demand was directly proportional to the population growth. But the dark blue line represents the projected future call demand and accompanied by range lines of plus or minus 10%. Ambulance service demand is primarily driven by the medical needs of an aging population. At present, those over age 65 account for half our call volume. However, they represent only 25% of the population. This trend is only going to accelerate in the years ahead. It might be a little small to see in the graph here, but the graph on the left demonstrates Lambton County's population pyramid. The dark lines represent the proportion of the population in 5-year cohorts. The light blue bars represent the proportion of our call volume in each of those 5-year cohorts. And so as you can see as an example, Lambton County's cohort of 80 to 84-year-olds accounts for 3% of the population, but they account for almost 10% of all of EMS calls for service. As the group of residents over age 65 continue to grow older, this will accelerate the rate of increase of our call volume. Added to the pressures of an aging population are those of an increasingly marginalized population. Between 2021 and 2022, Lambton EMS has seen a doubling of calls for service for people who are underhoused or homeless. Our services responded to a growing number of calls for mental health concerns and overdoses, but these challenges are ones that are disproportionately experienced by those who do not have secure shelter. Our service will need to develop new strategies to respond compassionately and effectively to these members of our community. As I mentioned earlier, Lambton EMS continues to meet our response time targets, but response times continue to trend upward. While we traditionally look at the 90th percentile response times in the aggregate, it's important that we drill down to look at trends on a community by community basis. Since 64% of our calls are in Sarnia, where the 90th percentile response times are around 8 minutes, this can obscure the response time trends in other communities across the county if we don't monitor those individually. This graphic here demonstrates that there are several communities facing increasing response time pressures, with 90th percentile response times approaching 30 minutes in some areas. Plympton-Wyoming has a fairly stable year-on-year trend, but it's on the high end of our mid-range average response times. Unit hour utilization is another key performance indicator that describes the health of an EMS operation. It's the percentage of all hours that a resource is not available to respond to a tasking, so when a crew is on a call. Operators must ensure that there's sufficient capacity to respond to calls while not overworking crews. The industry standard is generally accepted between 30 to 40% utilization. In these graphs, you can see that 3 of our stations will surpass the 35% threshold within the next 5 years, and a 4th will follow shortly after that. And this is the basis for our recommendation to add 3 additional ambulances to service peak demand hours over the 5-year horizon of the plan. It's possible to predict the frequency of occurrences when we won't have any ambulances to send when somebody calls 911. These are called code blacks. Currently, that happens about 36 times per year. However, the current service levels remain unchanged. With the projected growth in call volume, this will grow to about 200 times per year by 2028. The orange line in the graph demonstrates that with the recommended addition of resources, we can hold steady the cold black frequency and unit hour utilization at around roughly the same level as it sits now. While only 1/3 of our calls occur at night, we provide almost half of our staffing hours through this period. We've got a uniform 24-hour staffing pattern. It doesn't match the demand cycles very well. So shifting some of our service hours from nighttime to daytime can help improve our operating efficiency with the existing resources that we have. Another strategy that we looked at is to evaluate how and when we move our fleet. These graphs represent the movement of our fleet to provide balanced coverage in other areas when those stations are sent on calls. We call these standbys. As you'll notice, in some cases, this movement is beneficial and can help reduce response times. In other circumstances, it can actually worsen response times. So we took a detailed analysis of these movements and found ways to reduce standbys by over 25%. We anticipate this will help improve response times in the rural areas of the county and reduce wear and tear on the fleet and our staff, and provide cost savings in fuel consumption of about $50,000 a year. Now, this graph here shows how resources from across the county are drawn into Sarnia to service call demand while leaving other areas unguarded. Brights Grove and Corunna are particularly prone to being pulled into the city. The biggest impact to Plympton-Wyoming comes from the frequency that Brights Grove station is sent into Sarnia, reducing a response into our area here. Brigden responds to about 25% of all standby coverage in the county, which results in some of the prolonged response times down in Don-Euphemia thanks. And similar trends are also noted in Watford and Thetford. There's more information in the graphs within the package for you here too. This is a heat map of potentially life-threatening calls over the past 5 years. The lighter dots represent faster response times, darker dots are longer response times. The larger the dot, the more frequently a call occurred in that area, and large dark dots are ones that are areas for me for concern. So these create some areas of focus. When evaluating the heat map, several areas of focus become evident. In Sarnia East, there's a large volume of calls that experience longer response times. The Brights Grove station is not well positioned to service these calls, and it has delayed access to the 402. There's a service gap in Plympton-Wyoming, especially along the lakeshore, where population growth is occurring. And Lambton EMS currently does not have any resources in the township. There's a concentration of calls in Kelvin and Stony Point. Response times to the First Nation can be delayed on occasion if Forest or Thetford are assigned on calls or standbys in other areas. Fort Franks shows a note of calls with longer response times, and the Pinery has a large number of calls with very prolonged response times. Thetford and Watford both have ambulance stations, but response times are prolonged as these crews are often on standby assignments in other areas. And while the southeast region of the county is less densely populated, response times to the area can be upwards of 30 minutes, again, owing to Brigden and Watford frequently being assigned on standbys in other communities. So the analysis of response times, current and future service demands, population growth, and geography have led us to the following proposed changes. Adding 36 hours of service, which will provide 3 ambulances operating 12 hours a day to address the areas of peak demand. Relocating Brights Grove, Grand Bend, and Thetford to provide better response coverage arcs. Constructing new stations, including a headquarters in Sarnia East and new posts in Kamlaki area and near the Pinery. Relocating Thetford service hours to Forest. The nighttime service hours from Thetford would then be placed where they're most needed, either in Sarnia or in the southeast, once the data is analyzed following the changes we implement in the first 3 years. As proposed, the total number of stations operated by Lambton EMS won't change, but 3 are recommended for relocation. So this is what the movement of those stations would look like in future. And we'll see a couple options coming up in a second. Some rationale for these changes. The proposed relocation of Brights Grove to Sarnia East will provide better and improved service coverage to Sarnia, the 402, and expands coverage arcs and maintains good response times to Brights Grove, while better leveraging tiered response agreement with Sarnia Fire Rescue Services. Currently, where an urban fire service and EMS depart from the same location at the same time, they're likely going to arrive at the scene at the same time. which kind of negates the purpose of the agreement. It's a little different in a rural context where volunteer firefighters need to assemble and they have assembly time. So I mark that as a bit of a difference as we go forward here. The construction of a headquarters will allow the service to bring operations, administration, training, and logistics under the same roof. Lambton EMS for Kamlaki, we don't currently have any assets positioned within the municipality of Plympton-Wyoming, but we're seeing service demand growth and slower response times along the lake shore. Positioning an ambulance in Kamlaki will help to fill a service area gap and will help to provide backup coverage for both Sarnia and Forest stations. Grand Bend's currently located in the upper corner of Lambton County and provides very limited service to the areas outside of that community. Its utilization is around 8%, and it's often not moved to provide standby coverage elsewhere. Relocation closer to the Pinery addresses a significant service gap at the park and Port Franks, while maintaining service coverage to Grand Bend within the 10-minute response times. This relocation allows the reallocation of Thedford service hours, as the new location would provide 10-minute coverage for Thedford as well. And reallocation of Thedford service hours can be done without compromising response to the community. The Thedford ambulance responds to about 1.2 calls every 24 hours, and it's frequently sent to Forest for standby coverage, resulting in it being out of community more than 40% of the time. By moving the daytime hours to Forest, we can reduce fleet movement while maintaining 10-minute coverage from both the Pinery and Forest stations. And this will also provide the opportunity to use 12 hours currently allocated in the very low utilized nighttime hours. Currently, there's 10 ambulances staffed on a 24-hour basis, 1 ambulance staffed for 12-hour daytime, providing Lambton with 11 ambulances during peak demand. Sarnia accounts for 64% of all calls for service, but only has 32% of EMS resources positioning there, which is what results in a significant draw into Sarnia from the rest of the county. The proposed enhancements and relocations will allow for 15 ambulances on duty during peak hours, with 47% of peak hour service located in Sarnia. The proposed timeline would see the addition of 12 hours of service and construction of a new station in each of the next 3 years. In the 4th year, once all the movements and enhancements have been implemented, then the 12 hours of daytime service from Thedford can safely be relocated to Forest, and we'll evaluate where the remaining 12 hours of service from Thedford should be located based on the results of the strategies from this plan. The measures within the master plan are the ones we can take locally to improve efficiency. However, there's going to be much need in transformation in how we provide care to the future. Much of this will be dependent on collaboration with our partners in the provincial government. Many people call 911 because they don't have any place else to turn for health system access. However, often they don't require emergent care. Emergency medical services are often seen as a gateway into healthcare when few other community options for primary care exist. Emergency care is one of the most expensive areas in healthcare, and so it's essential that we do a better job of getting people connected with the care they need in the time they need it. For those who don't have urgent care needs, developing pathways to family doctors rather than emergency departments, or to be able to schedule an appointment with our community paramedics rather than sending an ambulance right away, will provide patients with the right care in the right place at the right time. And these are going to be essential elements in achieving sustainability in a system where growth in demand far outpaces growth of our population. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Okay, council, as you heard, this came back out of county council, and we were asked to take it back to our municipalities for consideration and for thinking about it and then responding back by the end of January. I'm going to I'm going to go through the council. You can ask one question. I think what I'd like to do, if your council is supportive of it, we'll bring it back to our next meeting and have further discussion on this. So while we've got Mr. Turner and Mr. Taylor here, let's ask them a question. If you have one relating to this time, I'm going to begin with Councillor Bojan.
Thank you, Worship. It's a great presentation, very thorough. I don't have any questions for you right now, but I certainly appreciate the opportunity to put feedback by in January.
Councillor Basie?
Yes, thank you. in the report, there's no mention of how often the ambulances are sitting at the hospital unable to unload their things. I hear from everybody in the healthcare. Biggest waste of our emergency time is sitting waiting for a bed, which to me is just another downloading of the government pushed onto us, so we have to enhance our services. And they don't, I guess is the thing. So we have any idea how long they're stuck at the hospitals?
Through you, your worship. In fact, we had just submitted a report to county council. That'll be on the agenda coming up for 17th for the committee of the whole. We will be providing those updates quarterly. It's something we do monitor very closely. The Blue Water Health System is a very high performer in this regard. We don't face the same issues to the same degree as our partners and neighbors towards Middlesex County or Windsor Essex. They work really well with us to turn our crews around and get them out as quickly as possible. There are challenges within the system. And while we don't speak directly to offload delays in here, I mentioned at the end that it's going to be incumbent on us to work with our provincial partners. One of those things that we need to do is to be able to not take everybody to the emergency department. The most variable component of our response time, our response and time on task is the hospital. It can be 15 minutes and it can be 4 hours. Often when we get sent to London, that's when we really start to see prolonged, what they call the offload delays. And we have to work with our health system partners to do better on that. But the reality is about a quarter of our patients don't need care and don't need to be seen in the emergency department. They do need care, they do need help. But if we can reduce the amount of patients that we take directly to the emergency department, we can also reduce the amount of time we spend in the emergency department.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Basie. Councillor Rodriguez.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's a very good report. I do live in that north end of Plympton-Wyoming and have utilized the ambulance services many times for caring for elderly. And I do see the challenges and the need for that shift that you're proposing, especially since that is the biggest growth area. My question is who pays for the infrastructure to build these facilities and fit everything? It's obviously, it almost sounds like we'd be hurting more if Sarnia did move their, if Sarnia makes the decision to move the Brights Grove one, then we'd be in a far worse shape. We all have to be in sync, it seems. So who pays for that?
Through your worship, the service and the assets are those of Lambton County. And so the station locations, all of those are the purview of Lambton County Council. The relocation of a station actually is a lot cheaper, strangely enough, than adding new resources. So if we didn't move a station, I'll give you an example, and this is napkin math, so don't quote me on it, but a station, as we identify in the report, is about $2 to $3 million to build as a capital. It's amortized between 20 and 40 years. So its amortized capital cost comes out to about $120,000 to $130,000 a year. A 24-hour ambulance crew, because we weren't able to move the crews to where they need to be, we would have to add a crew into a station that frankly don't have a lot of space to put them. But a new crew for 12 hours is about $500,000 a year. And for a 24-hour crew is about $1 million a year. So a capital cost of about $130,000 annually amortized over that period of time versus the operation cost, which is significantly more. It's more strategic to try and relocate our resources and build rather than try to put new resources in terms of operating costs.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, any questions?
I do have a question. Thank you. Does Plympton-Wyoming find the property where this new ambulance service would be provided from, or I'm not sure how that works. If you could explain that to me.
Through you, your worship, thank you for the question. That's probably most important part of all of this is we can say, yeah, let's put it there. We need to find the property to do that. And so we would be looking for municipal partners would be one option. We would look and procure land privately if that was be another option. There are upon approval of the plan, that's when we would start to we would take that as kind of a go to start looking for opportunities for placement and where it would be best positioned. I try very cautiously to use the term Kamalaki area because it may or may not land there, but we would like to see an asset within Plympton-Wyoming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Councillor Van Claveren?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No questions for me. I learned an awful lot. I appreciate the way this was laid out. It made clear a lot of things, all the different graphs and so on. There was some math in there I had struggled with, but I trust your figures here for sure. No, thank you. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor Wolvett?
Thank you very much for that report. I too studied this report of yours very carefully. I've had an opportunity to use your ambulance service a couple of times and wasn't the best shape to be sizing you up at the time I was using those facilities, but what I found was the wait times when they get you to the hospital, get you to the emergency wards, and you're on that stretcher and your ambulance drivers are there with you for extended periods of time. Especially in my case, I had to be transferred to London. And even when we got to London to get to the cardiac care ward, I mean, it isn't just on the ground floor at the front door. You know, going through that hospital in the off hours and the time they had to wait to even get the right, it really was very time consuming. So, I mean, your report is right on the money for what you're studying. And I guess to close it off, the only thing I could say, the only thing I found wrong with your service when I was on my way to London, they had a problem with one of their electronic devices that kept saying deceased. That was yeah, they kept saying, you're okay. You're excellent report. So I can see where you come up with your conclusions. So good report.
Thank you, Councillor Wolvett. We're glad you're still here.
So much.
Mr. Turner and Mr. Taylor, thank you very much. I have no questions. I've been through this and heard it a couple times, so I want to thank you for this. We'll be talking about it at our next meeting, which I believe clerk is the 25th.
Correct.
Yeah, so then we'll have a report to you by the end of the month as requested.
Wonderful. And thank you. And if you have any questions in between now and then, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're more than happy to help.
I'll ask council if they have questions to shoot through our clerk and send them off to you if that's okay.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, well, you guys take care. Thanks for coming. All right. Okay, council, let's go to item 5.1 on the agenda. First of all, I'd like to declare a pecuniary interest on an item which appeared on the council meeting agenda December 13th, 2023. It was during our closed session 3.1, where I declared a conflict. Although I wasn't here in person, I was watching you virtually, and I want the record to reflect that I did declare a conflict at that time. So, in that 5.1, I have a motion by Councillor Rodriguez, seconded by Councillor Bojan, and this is where. Whereas the Ontario government has partnered with the government of Canada to plant 31 million trees and advance 2 billion trees program. Whereas the Ontario government is committed to deliver cleaner air, advance biodiversity, and advance climate action across Ontario. Whereas conservation authorities across Ontario have participated in the tree planting on thousands of parcels of public conservation lands as part of the government's commitment to migrate climate change. Whereas conservation authorities across Ontario, through their expertise, have provided education to elementary and high school students on the benefits of conservation, biodiversity, wetlands, ecosystems, and the importance of trees in cooperation with the Ontario government's commitment to nature-based climate solutions. Whereas the Ontario government, through regulation 686/21, eliminated tree planting and educational services, the conservation authorities mandated roles despite the benefits of the services being aligned with the Ontario government's climate action initiatives. Whereas these programs can now be funded through self-generated revenues, user fees, government and other agency grants, donation and optional municipal funding agreements. Whereas the provincial government recognized the importance of climate action and the role that conservation authorities have played through education, preservation and action, it is instead downloading provincial costs to the municipal ratepayer. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the town of Plympton-Wyoming requests provincial consideration for an amendment to regulation 686/21, the Conservation Authorities Act, to incorporate provincial funding for tree planting and educational services as part of the provincial government's commitment to fight climate change. That the that a copy of the resolution be sent to the Honorable Doug Ford, the Honorable Graydon Smith, the Honorable Steve Lecce, the Honorable Andrea Cont, Conservation of Ontario. So, is there any discussion on this motion? To my left, Councillor Wolvet,
Sir, I think it's a good letter.
Councillor Van Clavin,
For me, sir.
Deputy Mayor,
No comments?
Councillor Bojan,
For me, thank you.
Wolvet, good. I'm sure you have nothing on this. All right, council, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, council, let's go to 6.1. I have a motion by Councillor Wolbeth, seconded by Councillor Van Clavin. That the minutes be adopted by council and the confidential minutes of the closed sessions of council remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act. That would be our December the 11th meetings. We had 5. Our planning council meeting minutes, our closed planning council meeting minutes, public meeting minutes, our zoning bylaw amendment 124 of 2023, which was 5955 South Plympton Road. Public meeting minutes of zoning bylaw amendment 125 of 2023 of 0 King Street. And the public meeting minutes of building permit fee review, as well as December 13th, 2023, regular council meeting minutes, as well as the closed regular council meeting minutes. Council, you've had an opportunity to review them. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I'll call for the motion. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, let's go to 6.2. We have a motion by Councillor Rodriguez, seconded by Councillor Vaizey, that the minutes be adopted by council and those confidential minutes of the closed sessions remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy. That would be our Parks and Recreation Committee meeting minutes of October 19th, which is getting a lot of interest. Our Environmental Service Committee meeting minutes of November the 2nd, and our Special Events Committee meeting minutes of November the 6th. We have Councillor Vaizey here from the Parks, Councillor Bojan from both Environmental and Special Events. If there are any questions. To my left, any questions? Deputy, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, to my right? Okay, call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, council reports. Deputy, would you like to take this one?
Well, it would probably be simpler if you did it, wouldn't it? Rather than my doing it virtually.
I'm getting dry, Deputy, so I need you to take over.
Oh, you're getting dry. Well, I'm not. So, okay, Councillor Boughton, have you anything to report?
Nothing to report, just Special Events Committee met on Monday for the first time for the year, gearing up, but other than that, nothing to report on.
Okay, thank you. What about Mr. Vaizey?
I have nothing new to report, ma'am.
Good. thank you. Ms. Rodriguez, oh, where's the camera going? Thank you, yeah.
Thank you. No, I have my first meeting tomorrow with the trails.
Oh, okay. And Mr. Van Claveren?
Yes, hi, Deputy Mayor.
Hi.
The drainage file is alive and well. We did some work on the Carmichael Drain, which services areas near Fleming and Egremont, in your neck of the woods. And including Trails Edge subdivision, and we met with landowners and Elizabeth, our drainage superintendent, in regards to the Armstrong Drain, which is scheduled for a standard clean out. And that is all I have to report. Thank you.
Good, thanks. Mr. Wilbert?
Thank you, Nettie. We've had our first fire committee meeting here this week. Very productive meeting and looking forward to for 2024 and very productive meeting and look forward to the next one.
Good, good. Okay, so I guess it's my turn. I don't have anything to report really, but you, Mr. Wolvette, you just said you had a fire board meeting, and I just want to comment that Kamlaki Fire Department put Santa on the fire truck and went through the communities of Kamlaki and the area, the lake area. It was great. There were so many good comments about it. I wouldn't have minded having a little bit of heads up on it, because then I would have been able to get a more healthier group together to stand out in my laneway and wave at them. But that's all. Thank you.
It was
The end of the report, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Deputy. Two things for me. Number one, I attended the opening ceremonies of the Petrolia Silver Stick, as well as the Forest one, was graciously received at both of them. I was at a doctor retention meeting. Two things to announce. They're looking at bringing in another nurse practitioner, which would give through the family health team 4 nurse pracs, which are taking the load off the doctors. So they're working on that right now. And there's a program that we're going to be applying for. It's called the Practice Ready Program. There's going to be 50 spots open across Canada under the Ministry of Health. Sorry, across Ontario through the Ministry of Health. And this is for a candidate physician who already has a medical degree from a qualified medical school to come to the area and set up practice. They have to have a minimum, there's certain qualifications they have to before they could be considered for this program, and they must remain in the area for at least 3 years. So I believe we're going to be applying for that to see if we can have the opportunity to get somebody. So, pardon?
Sorry, can I get clarification on what you said? So is it a grant to bring in somebody from residency, or?
It's somebody that's already a doctor from another area, like another country.
Oh.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I apologize. I left you out, but you picked up the slack. Thank you.
That's okay, Deputy. That's why we're a team. All right, let's go to 7-1. I have a motion by Councillor Van Claveren, seconded by Councillor Wolvette, that council remuneration claims for December of 2023 be approved for payment. Any questions on that? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, let's start our staff reports. I will remind you that we have a drainage meeting at 6 o'clock. Okay, our first one is 1. It's a report, a motion by Councillor Bojan, seconded by Councillor Vasey. The report by Elizabeth Cummings, Drainage and Engineering Coordinator, dated December 20th, 2023, regarding a petition for drainage works by owners of Lot 25, Concession 4. 5483 London Line be received, and the council accepts the petition as filed and appoints RDOB and Engineering Incorporated to make an examination of the area and prepare a report. Ms. Cummings is with us. Is there any questions to my right? My left? Deputy, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, let's go to 8.2. Have a motion by Deputy Mayor McEwen, seconded by Councillor Vacy. That the report by Jessica Wilson, Executive Assistant Public Works, dated January the 2nd, 2024, regarding the distribution drainage engineer reports be received, approved by council, and that staff proceed with the new process report distribution as per the recommendation included in the report. Council, you've had a chance to take a look at that. Any questions? To my left, Councillor Wolbett,
No, sir.
Van Claveren.
Just a comment, I love it. Let's fire it up.
Deputy?
Jessica.
No questions. I'm total agreement. The less stuff going out of there having to pay mail. Yeah, go ahead.
Am I right?
Just a comment that, yes, excellent, and it's good that they took it out of the mandatory mailing, so, yeah, great report.
Councillor Vacy?
Yes, I'm just questioning why we send out a hard copy at all to anybody. When we say available on request. I would take it down to, don't send it to anybody unless they want one. And does the cost of that come out of the drainage? Was that part of the drainage costs? Or we as a town are paying that? Because it should be, it's part of the.
Can you answer that question? Yeah.
Through you, your worship.
Yes, you may.
And Norma may be able to speak to this better, but no, that comes out of general funds. So the cost to administer the act, that is to be borne by the municipality under general funds.
Even more so.
Councillor Vacy did make a comment about only sending digital copies. Elizabeth, is there items that are required to be sent physical, or property owners who are required to be sent physical items under the Drainage Act?
For you, no, with the changes to the legislation, they could all go electronically. I think we were thinking to send them to people that abut, just because. I guess it's been something that's always been done. Often landowners like to keep a copy of the drain report. I'll go to people's places and they have copies from 40 years ago still, like farmers tend to like to keep them. So that's why we were going with, and it does drastically, like there might be 10 or 20 people on a drain at the most for a drain, regular drain on the drain, but then your watershed could be 200 easily. So it's a small number compared to the total watershed that we have.
Thank you. Councillor Bojan?
Nothing for me, thank you.
All right. Hearing nothing else, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Great. It's important to us. Yeah, let's go to 8.3. Motion by Councillor Rodriguez, seconded by Councillor Van Claven. The report prepared by Paul De Silva, Director of Public Works, dated December 21st, 2023, regarding the annual contractual amendments, Article D.1.1 and D4 of the current operations, maintenance, and management service agreement with Jacobs be received, and that proposed increase and base fee adjustment formula be approved by council. Is there any questions on this? To my right, Councillor Bojan?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a question. It mentions in there that it's within the 2024 approved budget. I'm just wondering if there's any more clarification when you consider the additional fees outside of the scope of work that's mentioned. Are we still within our anticipated budget, even with those additional fees?
Worship, if I may.
Yes.
So I can get in further details or at the next Water and Sewer Committee meeting in regards to the additional fees. There is something going forward in that regard. However, we do consider when we develop the 2024 budget, an increase of this nature and the historical additional fees that we've seen over the last 10 years. So yes, they are included in your proposed 2024 budget.
Councillor Vacy? Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you. So I guess one of the questions is it at the committee level where you're presenting the justification for increases? In this one, they noted that fuel and wages drove the costs up. I'm not sure how fuel did, but because it's really hasn't changed much, but
So the justifications you're referring to are not justifications of why they see increased costs, but justifications in regards to why the CPI index is higher. The contract amendment is held to a set calculation that is performed by Jacobs and then verified by our staff. So they go by an inflationary increase only. It doesn't matter what those inflationary items create. It's all by the Bank of Canada's CPRI index from a set time period. So the report was just referring back to why you're seeing a larger increase due to the current inflation because of items such as APs.
okay, thank you.
Deputy,
No, no questions.
Councilor Van Claveren,
No question for me, sir.
Councilor Wolvett.
I don't recall seeing this increase at our environmental committee meeting, yet.
Yes, Councilor Wolvett, you're 100% correct, and staff greatly apologize for that. Unfortunately, the first round of the increase came in, and there was amendments that staff required, which meant that Jacobs was not able to return the proposed amendment back to us until after the last Environmental Services Committee of 2023. To keep things moving along and to avoid having to do a retro payment. We thought it appropriate to bring it to council today to move forward. We will be bringing this report in its copy to the Environmental Services Committee. Jacobs will be on site to answer any questions, but staff have vetted the report thoroughly to ensure it meets the intent of the contract.
Just to follow up on that, if you recall, last year I questioned their increase. I believe at the committee level, this is where we get an opportunity to debate what they're doing here before it gets to the full council. But I mean, in this case here, a lot of the details are missing. So council's getting this for the first time with no debate from the committee level. If you recall, last year we had a huge debate, and this was sent back for review to Jacobs. And even in the end, I know we came back and didn't make any changes because of what's in their contract. It's still worthy of a debate. And the other final comment I'll make is that, I don't know why it always is. Why are we always getting increases or greater than what we're increasing our rates? Like we're looking at 4%, maybe in our budget, and now here we are 4.66%. The other thing I see in here, you look at fuel prices, they have fuel prices in their calculation, but if you look at the fuel prices have been down for months on end. So, I don't know how that would have increased it, but that are just some of the debate comments that we do at committee level. So.
Yes, sir. And where there is an increase, such as the changing the orders from using Q2 information instead of Q2 information. That is something that is definitely debatable and is outside the contract as contemplated. I realized in 2022, the committee of the time deferred the request for payment. It did go through a number of revisions. However, the total interest costs remained close to the same and was ended up approved in 2023. That calculation that is used to determine the rate of increase is again established by a calculation which is agreed upon in the contract and using numbers established by the Bank of Canada. So there is less, although we can have discussion on it and we can certainly look at options, it is a contractual obligation. So again, changing the quarters is definitely something that we could have debated more at the Environmental Services Committee, and I appreciate that. However, the full price, although we could have discussed it, it is a challenge to see changes to that due to our contractual obligations.
It's just my feelings at council voting on this of really not knowing a whole lot of detail about it. That's how I feel right now.
Well, you have a good point, Counselor. We like this, we could defer it.
And staff is helping Jacobs with their year end. Their challenges with year ends is that we always approve this months and months after year end. So they asked if we could push this forward and we did so. Staff understand and appreciate the desire of committee members to want to review this prior to. But in an effort to help our partners in this situation, we agreed that we would bring it to council first. However, council as a whole feels that they prefer the Environmental Services Committee to vet it. Staff does not have an objection to that and would recommend then that council defers this until such time that the committee has an opportunity to review it.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Well, I would support deferring because I think, I don't think we should side skirt the process of letting the committee vet it. If that's, and I don't know a lot about this, where's the committee? And you're discussing setting it up so that this second quarter would be used for the remainder of the contract, and without really knowing a lot about that and what the other options are, where the committee would have more in-depth knowledge. I think I wouldn't feel comfortable making that decision without it going through their expertise first.
Councilor Vacy. Anything?
Yes, I would agree. I rely on our committee members for that kind of input. So if they haven't seen it, then I prefer they look at it.
Dr. Bojan.
I'm just looking, because our February 1st is our next environmental, right?
Pardon me?
February 1st.
Yes, sir.
I have no further comments, so it's already been discussed.
Deputy, good night.
Yeah, there's no sense in having committees if you're not gonna go through a committee.
Councilor Van Claveren.
I agree with deferring.
I have a motion by Councilor Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Van Claveren. That made this motion. If you're receptive, I'll ask for a deferral. You give council is acceptable on that. Okay, council, so I will, all those that would like to have it deferred. It's unanimous. We're going to 8.4 council. It's moved by Deputy Mayor McEwen, seconded by Councilor Vacy. That the report by Paul De Silva, Director of Public Works, dated December 21st, 2023, regarding an application for funding from the Ontario Trillium Foundation capital grant be received. The council supports the application for improvements to the walkability of Lambton Shore Road in urban Kamlaki. Is there any discussion on this motion?
Lakeshore.
Sorry, Lakeshore. What did I say?
Vantage.
It's not me that made the mistake.
I know, I was like.
We'll be taking them over shortly, yeah. Councilor Bojan.
Thank you. I know Mr. Still is not here, but Mr. Smith could probably answer it. My question is about the obtaining the road widening. Are we relying on, because we'll need to get private land? And so my question is it at all realistic to be able to know if that land acquisition is even possible before the deadline to apply for this? So that we're not in a position where we've applied for this grant and we can't use the money because we can't get the land in time?
Through the chair, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Councillor Bojan, we've actually been working on this project for probably close to 5 years now. We've applied for grant on this project numerous times and have not been successful yet. The Trillium Fund capital grant seems to be a better suit than the grants we applied for in the past. And we've already had the commitment from the County of Plympton to obtain the road widening when the time came. We've actually already started the process of authoring the letter, which they had to the County of Plympton requesting that the road widening be obtained in the 2024 year. That way, even if we're not successful on this grant, we can move forward when funds or council determines it is fit to do so without having to wait for any land acquisition by the county. So we do not see it as being an issue to move forward, as the grant does give a fairly reasonable timeline to allow for us to both do construction and obtain the needed plans.
Any other questions? Am I right? Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you. So from my understanding, from when the whole bridge replacement came up on Lakeshore Road, and the time we learned that the next phase of Lakeshore Road which was supposed to be slated for this year, was from Mendalman to Kamlaki, where they were working on that stretch of road and they were doing the road widening in that project. So I believe it is supposed to be in their purview. But secondary to that, if I may, is my understanding from our previous conversations as well, is that their road widening takes away our right of way, and then our right of way becomes the ditch, which is kind of hard to put a path in. And then you were talking about you would have to then expropriate a right of way because, is that correct?
Generally, yes. So when we were speaking about road widening, in this circumstance specifically, we're not referring to the county of Lambton widening its road platform, the driving surface of the road. We're talking about them widening their road allowance. So yes, either expropriating or purchasing land so that when we build the trail, it is not too close to the road or in the bottom of the ditch. It would be into what would be currently farm field or forested land.
Or parking lot?
Well, without getting into details and measurements, I know there is space between the referred to parking lot and the ditch to accommodate the sidewalk.
So that is agreed upon, that could all realistically happen. Thank you.
Deputy, any questions?
No questions. Let's get her done.
Councilor Van Claveren?
No question for me, sir.
Well, that,
No, I'm good with it. Thanks.
all right, let's go for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Council, we're gonna have a drainage meeting in about 4 minutes, so I'm gonna take a short recess for 4 minutes, possibly 5, and when we come back, Councilor Van Claveren will be taking the chair for the drainage meeting.
reconsideration meeting for the Somerville drain. So obviously, we've had a consideration meeting. It was sent back to our trusty engineer who has reworked it at 6 o'clock, and we will begin. At this time, if there's any declaration of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest, now's a good time to do it. This particular meeting, I'll backtrack a bit. At the August 30th, 2023 consideration meeting here in Chambers, the Somerville Drain Improvements Report was referred back to the engineer for design revisions. The purpose of this reconsideration meeting is to discuss the technical aspects of the updated Somerville Drain Improvements 2023 report dated December 15th, 2023. Concerns around assessments or fee allotment may be brought up at the quarter revision meeting. Allow me to introduce the members of council and staff that are present. Our Mayor Gary Atkinson, Deputy Mayor who's not here in person but online, Deputy Mayor Nettie McEwen, Councillors Bob Wolvette, Alex Bojan, Mike Vasey, Kristen Rodriguez, and our staff drainage and engineering coordinator Elizabeth Cummings, our drainage clerk Jessica Wilson, CAO Adam Sabansky's also here, and our engineer Mike Garrett's of M. Garrett's Consulting. I'll turn it now over to your way, Mr. Garrett's, and provide an update on the engineer's report, please.
Thank you. Through the chair and to the council. Maybe I'll stand over there so I can use my finger. I don't have a pointer. So this is a reconsidered report. The original report addressed what was discussed at the site meetings with the landowner, and the reconsidered report addresses what was put forward at the meeting to consider. An additional meeting was held on November 28th, 2023 to discuss the Somerville drain in relation to the Trails Edge development. Landowners that were informed that once the Trails Edge development is complete, the tile portion of the Somerville branch drain, so this is the Somerville branch drain. So the tile portion of this drain will become redundant and will be abandoned under this report. The berm, which is what the landowners were concerned about, will remain in place, remain part of the Somerville drain and the Somerville branch drain. Abandoning the tile drain portion of the Somerville drain located along the rear lots will relieve any of the landowners fronting here of maintenance costs. Well, it won't relieve them of the maintenance costs, we'll relieve them the maintenance cost of the closed tile because it won't be there anymore. In theory, there's still possibly a maintenance cost for something on the berm. I can't imagine what that would be, but I guess there's still a berm in the report. So if something happened to the berm, then they would maintain it under this report. Normally, if something happens to a berm, though, it means someone's touched it and they're not supposed to touch it, which is why it's protected in the report. So I can't really see a lot of maintenance coming through unless it washes out for some reason. And on November 30th, because we're abandoning the drain, the town of Plympton-Wyoming sent mailed a letter to all landowners notifying them the proposed abandonment portion of the tile, a portion of the Somerville branch drain. So the report revisions include the improvements to the Somerville drain include a typical drain cross section of both the tile drain and the berm section. When it's located along the future section of the trails, the subdivision, which is right here. So these will be developed. So we're putting in a new tile here, a non-perforated tile, and we're going to keep the berm. And the point of that is we don't want to have a perforated tile because as the houses get built and land and trees go on it, we still have to provide an outlet for everyone that paid into the Somerville drain here. They still have to go through, and we don't want to touch the water in the area because historically it's been a problem. We're also going to put a ditch inlet here. So originally there was a bigger ditch inlet. The landowner was concerned about the noise, so we've revised. BM Ross has looked at it. We put a smaller 2x2 catch basin. It's an offline catch basin, so it ties into the sewer, so it'll be quieter. And it's just catching nuisance water, like stuff in the front lawn. And I mean, you might be able to get it to grade, but if there's standing water, it is an area where it probably can handle the catch basin versus trying to push it over the curb. The Somerville branch drain. So like I said before, we're gonna make a detail to show what the dimensions of the berm are here, so that in case it ever does get modified by a landowner as they develop their lot, we can restore back to what it was at the landowner's cost. We can also maintain it in the event that it ever were to have a maintenance issue, which we can't really foresee now. We're gonna abandon the 150 to 200 millimeter Somerville perforated drain that comes like this. And it's gonna just remain in place, but as the development goes, and once the development's done, it's become redundant, so we're not gonna rip it out. It'll stay in place until it no longer functions, but it doesn't need it because each property has a rear yard catch basin that takes the surface water and brings it to the storm sewer and runs it into the stormwater management pond, which is here, and then it outlets into the Colburn Street drain. So that's why the drains are done. We had it there because it collected the surface water, but now as we develop, or as Baines develops the land, we're getting rid of we're cutting that water off. And really, the only thing that's gonna happen back there is the rear yard water is gonna go into a rear yard catch basin and come to the front. However, landowners have had water issues, so they're still concerned, and so the berm stays there in the event of a massive overland flow, I guess. It also helps, it gives a bit of height if they plant trees on it, I guess, for privacy. I was gonna review the Drainage Act, but since everyone was here before, there's probably no need. I was gonna do that if there were landowners, residential landowners. If anyone wants me to, I can go through it again, or is everyone okay? Okay, then this report was prepared under section 78 of the Act. It includes replacing the Somerville drain from King Street, 70 meters along Fourth Drive. So we're gonna replace the King Street drain here. It also includes replacing the perforated section here, and abandoning this piece here and incorporating the berm and both of the branch drains. It also provides a 6-meter working easement to be able to get on and access the drain. And in that easement, the developer will use, there's already an easement there for Bell, I believe, or utilities, so we're just merging those two together, and it's all in the same easement. It gives the ability to maintain the drain. So the design, it's actually probably improved just because of the way that the development has gone. We've got stormwater management now. We're bringing stuff to the stormwater management pond and controlling it on the way out. It controls about 130 millimeter per 24 hour, which is significantly more than the agricultural coefficient. An estimated cost prepared of $99,349, which includes engineering fees, preparation of their report, and construction, but it doesn't include BM Ross's fees, which the developer paid on his own. Assessments: the proposed Somerville drain improvements 2023, which means both of these, so the Somerville branch drain and the Somerville drain, have been assessed as a section 24 assessment of the lands ending in 536-01 or on 1714603 Ontario Inc. or the Baines property. And I believe that's it. If anyone has any questions, I'm here to answer from either the landowner or from council.
Just to confirm the drain you're going to abandon there, I believe you said you're still going to have an outlet into the storm pond? Like, at the right end there, the south end?
No, so when they develop their lots, they're gonna bring all their rear yard water to the storm sewer in front of the house, and that gets directed to the stormwater management pond here. So there's no more rear yard water going there. This came up because back originally, one of the landowners petitioned because they had problems with water. And we knew if once the development comes, as we cut our trenches in for storm sewers, as we build our roads, it cuts that off. If you remember, the people really complain, and they've had pictures in the paper where when it does rain, it comes, and even one landowner even said once Van Bree, that's not called Van Bree, but when Van Bree developed that property, they already noticed an improvement because they were controlling some of their water, but historically the water would come and it would go right against the Mayu property, right in that corner. And that's why Mr. Mayu's always concerned about losing that berm because, yeah, like what if water does come through the back? He wants that protection from that berm. But it is changing, drastically changing. So when you start putting in rear yard catch basins and pulling it forward, we're no longer collecting any water in the backyard. It's in that drain.
So just to confirm, Mike, there will be no outlet to that piece you're gonna abandon, right? Okay, that's.
It'll stay in place until it fails. There is still a private drain here. That stays private. We're not touching that. It's been there for a while. The previous King Street report done by Will Bartlett has these landowners along King Street there. Once the drain fails, they're required to tie into the new drain. That's not the case for these drains here, but that's why we sent the letter out to everyone to say it's going to get abandoned. So if they want to use and they want to improve it, it becomes a whole different project because now they're going to have to petition to improve that or to get. We wouldn't take on the private drain. It's a disaster. It's full. It's not working right now. So you're putting a new drain in, and then it becomes a bigger project. So unless they're tying stuff in there, they wouldn't need it. It was originally done more for the septic system outlets.
If I may, we talked about this drain a lot,
Yes.
especially with property owners there along King Street. And the pictures we seen and the water flooding up to the houses. So your hope is that this is going to improve that big time.
Yeah, it definitely will, because they're putting in stormwater management, stormwater, and they're directing stuff, they're directing water, even the part that comes to the bush is gonna get into a storm sewer and go to the stormwater management pond. So they're taking, like, I have done a calculation, which is why it's got such a big coefficient, because we're taking a lot of the area that used to utilize the berm, because really technically it's a perforated tile, so there isn't even a ditch inlet to get into that tile. I mean, it will go through the ground, but we're taking a huge area out of it and bringing it in and controlling it, which really just relieves the pressure on this drain, like the whole drainage system, because it's already got a lot of pressure, like all drains, and it's got a lot of stuff coming into it.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions? Councilor Rodriguez?
So the existing properties on the north there or the top.
Yep.
So their drain goes away. Where do their properties drain?
Well, that drain was put in and they used to tie their septic systems into it. Now I assume since their septic's out front or they've got sewers, they brought it around. So it's really deep. So that's why we sent it out, because if they want to maintain a rear yard drainage, that was their time to say they want to keep it. Otherwise, they have to bring their rear yard around to the front of the property.
So they have something in place to redirect their drainage?
They'd have to go to the roadside ditch. There's no drain. I believe the drain stops right around here. And then, sorry, the Coleman branch stops right here. These people don't have it, no.
So nobody's gonna have drainage anymore up there.
Well, that drain though, that drain was put in deep for, like, for the septic relief. Our concern always has been if someone tied a rear yard catch basin in it, but it's a private drain.
Okay,
So,
private drainage.
So if they want it, they have to, we can't even touch it.
Stays in place.
It stays in place, yeah, it doesn't work though. I mean, we all know it's plugged, but sorry, I'm getting confused a little bit. You're right, it's a private drain, so we don't even have a say over it. But we're taking away the Somerville drain, which they weren't tied into anyway because it was shallow, and it wasn't even meant to be tied into. It was strictly the Somerville branch drain was there to collect the water as it does come down like this, but if it came like this, it would direct it over to the corner. And then it gets into a catch basin here, the first it pools here, but it has to go in either through the catch basin or through the perforated tile at the berm, but there's not even much of a swale left. Like that thing's been, it hasn't worked in years. Other than the berm definitely works, the berm stops the water, but the actual tile underneath, I don't know, it has to filter in. It's not taking huge amounts of water right away. It will take it as it penetrates. It probably takes more groundwater as well because it cuts it off, but it's shallow. It's not a deep tile. It's not like 3 feet down.
And my next question is, on the left, those properties, left side, go down the street,
King Street.
is that the Baines development? Where's
Baines is right here.
Oh, he's all.
Yeah. And so the reason we did this is, we're putting a development in with lots pretty tight to a drain, perforated drain. And here it's abandoned, so it doesn't matter if tree roots go in it. Here, we still have people that are in that woodlot that are still utilizing that berm to stop the water, and the water still has to go away, so that you still want it to go down this berm, so to protect their outlet with their and some of them do have in that case, some do have rear yard connections. There is inspection chambers. To protect their outlet, we've put a solid pipe in here, bigger, so it's a 200 instead of a 150. It's smooth walled and it has more grade, which is why as soon as you put more grade on the pipe and you put smooth walled pipe in, the capacity goes up quite a bit. It sounds like a lot, but the agricultural capacity is not that much to start with, so it goes from 24 to like 130. But that's because it's got a lot more grade in a smooth wall and it's bigger. But the point of that was just to make sure there's no detrimental effect to any of the properties upstream. Like when this development goes through, then we haven't done anything to make their drainage worse.
So elevation will be a big thing in.
Yeah, it would raise the lots, but then we don't get into that end of the act.
No, I know. Where do we get the complaints when it happens?
Yes, Councilor Vacy.
Yeah, just a comment. I see on here that there's a Michael Vasey is one of the lots, and that is not me. It's a cousin, so it's for the record. I'm not benefiting of any of this.
Does Deputy Mayor Nettie McEwen have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Any other questions here on council? Thank you so much, our engineer Michael Garretts. The pointing was pivotal to this danger. Well done. I appreciate that very much.
I got a pointer. I'll leave it here.
Jessica, our clerk, do we have any written correspondence?
No.
No written correspondence? Now the floor is open to any landowners that would like to share a few brief words that focus on the Somerville drain. Mr. Bain,
Not much. I just think this is gonna be an improvement for the neighbors as they thought so 4 years ago. So it's been 4 years, and if we can get this development going, just remember, all the developed land will be raised up, and we have the catch basins in the back. So it really makes all that redundant. And Elizabeth and I were out there looking at the drain. It actually drains pretty good in that, that Somerville drain. So, yeah. But like I say, I looked after my drains. I just hoping you guys looked after your drain on Fleming and Carmichael drain, but you didn't, I have to deal with that. Yeah, but so I'm held up as long as that's held up. Everything's good.
Thank you, Mr. Bain. Well, if there's no further questions for our engineer, I'll read the motion. Motion moved by Bob Wolvett and seconded by Michael Vasey. The report by M. Garrett's Consulting Incorporated dated December 15th, 2023 regarding the Somerville drain improvements 2023 be adopted as presented, and that bylaw 89 of 2023 be taken as having been read a first and second time, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the said bylaw. All in favor? Carried. Motion moved by Councillor Bob Olvet, seconded by Councillor Michael Vasey, that the reconsideration meeting for the Somerville Drain Improvements 2023 be adjourned, and that the Court of Revision be set for February 14th, 2024. All in favor? Carried. That concludes the Somerville drainage meeting tonight. I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Council, let's take a 10-minute break so we can pull some personnel around. Some that need to use facilities, personal break, whatever. So we'll reconvene at 6:30.
How we get?
Deputy will be back at 6:30.
Okay.
Oh, great.
I already want to do it.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Council, we'll continue on. Let's go to item 8.5 on the agenda. A motion by Councillor Bojan, seconded by Councillor Rodriguez, that the report by Paul De Silva, Director of Public Works, and Aaron Korchak, clerk, dated December the 21st, 2023, regarding the mobile food and refreshment vehicle request for proposal and licensing bylaw be received, approved, and that staff be directed to issue the proposal for competitive bidding. Is there any questions on this? I'll begin on my left. So Wolvet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just reading the report and the fee schedules. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm not determining it correctly, but it looks like the minimum bid for spots going to be $3,000. Is that the way I'm reading?
I believe so.
Now, I'm thinking about that small coffee truck that has to pay $3,000 up front. That's a lot of cups of coffee. Before you make any profit. And so that's really the only thing that concerned me. I have no issue with having a licensing fee, but say for a small, you got a big truck that sells burgers and hot dogs and fries. I mean, that, a little bit different than a smaller operation. So that's the only thing that concerned me there. Other than that, fee by law, and I think it's required.
Okay, I have the clerk that would like to respond to that.
Thank you, through you, your worship. The $3,000 fee was the fee that we used with the trial period for Anita Coffee Cart. We broke it down when you break it down per month for the season from April to end of October. It is more palatable. It looks like a lot as 3,000, but that was the fee used to cover costs and utilities and maintenance and working with the owner if there's complaints or issues. So that's what we used last year in the trial. So that's what we continue.
Charged.
Anita,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Mr. Sabansky.
And to add to that, Councillor Wolbert, this is not specifically for Anita Coffee Cart. This is any food vendor. And submit a bid and take up residency at the parks identified in this report. So it could be one of those big hamburger French fry trucks that take up the spot at this park.
So like an Anita's will still have to pay the $3,000?
Anita is a vendor, just like any other vendor who wishes to submit a tender.
So I guess that's my point, like, how many cups of coffee is that? It's like, and especially,
1,000.
just
1,000.
what she charges, you must have been there, Nettie, you know what she
Oh,
charges.
$3, yes.
Yes, 1,000 cups of coffee. I mean,
There you go.
I have no, pardon me for not knowing, I don't know how well she did there or didn't. Whether $3,000 upfront fee would affect it or not, I don't know. We haven't got that kind of.
Mr. Sabansky.
In conversation with Anita, I know she did quite well. She is chomping at the bit to see this come out so she can put her tender in. And she's aware of the $3,000 fee, and we noted that we'd be matching the minimum fee as what we asked her to pay in previous years. And she did not convey any objections to that base fee to staff.
Fair enough. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Mr. Rodriguez. You have a question?
Well, I do, just one concern, but I just,
Relating to this, I'll get to you if you want.
oh, so relating to him, I was like, yes, I was just gonna reiterate what you were saying, Ms. Vansky, but listening to her speak, she was quite happy, and wanted to stay there all year, I believe. So she had no problem with the fees being a small coffee establishment. I think it's probably a fair.
Okay.
That all, Councilor?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yep, thanks.
Councilor Van Claveren?
Just a couple of comments, in regards specifically to the $3,000. Anything less than that, I don't think we can qualify a potential vendor. So that 3,000 is that we're qualifying them as a serious, capable, someone, contractor with some means. And my wife, having done hot dogs and coffee at auctions in the past, she had some good days and she was pushing that. So $3,000 for the season, that's very fair.
Deputy?
No, I have no questions. I just made my comments a little while ago about 1,000 cups.
Okay. Councilor Rodriguez?
So I just had one concern, and that was the February 5th date. Seemed like it was kind of quick, but I guess. Or February 2nd date, sorry, was it February 2nd? Did I read that? Or the opening and then closing?
If I can just look at the date to confirm. Yeah, closing date says February 2nd.
And then the decision date is March 18th, I believe.
Well, so we're hopeful if council approved it today, we could put it out tomorrow, for a month. And then it would close February 2nd, have staff time to compare all the proposals, bring it to Parks and Rec, which is the 27th of February. And then it would come to council for approval in March, and they open in April. So it's kind of a time.
For the first year.
Yeah,
I
for the
guess
first
it
year.
is
Yeah.
kind of a tight timeline.
Yeah.
Because Plympton-Wyoming has never offered anything like this before, so the word's not out there, so
Yeah.
to speak,
We want a month out.
right? Yeah.
Moving forward, you'd likely see it released before Christmas,
No,
but unfortunately, because we don't have a bylaw in place,
no.
it's a little bit compressed.
Okay, that was it.
Okay, Councilor Basie?
No, we dealt this at Parks and Rec, so my only concern, I'll voice it here, is if someone were to default. Or they're not up to standards, that we do not refund the rest of their money. That's. We close them down because it's something we have to do, then we refund it, but not. Cause then we're losing out that somebody that could have been there for the rest of the season kind of thing. So,
Councilor Bojan?
Thank you. Just one clarification for you. So since it's a request for proposal, just say there was two proposals for Lamb-Racton Park and none for Lake Shore. Do we have the freedom after the RFP is closed to say you didn't win the proposal for Lake Shore or for Lamb-Racton? Do you want to move to Lake Shore? Is that flexibility there once the proposal period is closed?
Yes, typically with a proposal, you do have flexibility to negotiate after the close. Unlike a tender where it's a set value, set terms. Proposal, there's more flexibility to negotiate through the Parks and Recreation Committee and this council.
Thank you.
Councilor Wolvett?
I've just asked for some clarification on these trucks on private property. We have these two that I know of. They pay the same fee, $3,000. They don't have to put in an RFP because on their own property, right?
Councilor Wolvett, I think, yeah, you're correct. So there's two different things here. There's the request for proposal for town property, which involves a fee to us. Those same trucks that are approved will have to get a license from the town, and that has a small fee to it. The trucks that are on private property have to be zoned a certain way. They also come for a license, and the license fee is paid, I think it's $250 or $350, but they're not required to pay the rent, if you will, to cover costs on that land because they're not using town land, private property. So they are required to get a license still, but they're not a part of the RFP process.
Right. And that would be the same, if you don't mind me asking, like the vending trucks and that coming into the fair grounds during fair season and whatever's requested, wherever they just pay a fee for the day, right?
Yes, so they can be exempted as a special event vehicle. They still are required to provide proof of insurance, that they're inspected by Lambton Public Health, but typically a truck like that is licensed in another municipality somewhere. They could come from Sarnia, they have a license, we ask for proof for that, they attend our event for the day. So they're not required to get a whole new license with us. They have a license, we just ask them for proof of those items that have been completed. We want to make sure they're safe and all that, but we're not gonna ask them for a fee for one day.
Councilor Van Claveren?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just a couple more questions. The RFP, is that presented to all? Or is that available to all, or could it be offered to contractors from Wyoming first?
Clerk?
Thank you. Because it is a request for proposal, we would put it on our website and it's available to whoever wants it. There is no criteria of ownership or where your business lies. With other tenders and well, not proposals, but other tenders, we have contractors that we reach out to. In this case, we don't have any at this point. Well, we have Anita, we would definitely let Anita know, but we would just put it out and see what interest would bring forward.
And then is there the ability to, and it's always on the high, whoever's the highest, is that typically?
No, so there's a grading criteria
Okay.
in there, so they are graded based on several factors on what they're presenting forward and what, yeah, there's a whole, several staff would do the grading process and then come to the final. And that would be brought to parks to review and then to council.
I just have one more if I may.
Sure, go right ahead.
So.
He was looking.
No, this is, when Anita Coffee presented last year, she was aware that this year was gonna go to tender. I wonder if, because she had a great year with a lot of good reviews, very minor little negative feedback about, more so about traffic and foot traffic and so on. All in all, a great experience and an experiment out there. Is another year, could another year be made available to her?
Yes, but that wouldn't be in compliance with our procurement bylaw. Because we're actually actively looking for tenants on this property to identify a single tenant and award it to them without any negotiation. It would not necessarily be seen as doing so in an open manner.
Your question, Counselor?
It does. Thank you.
You have anything more?
I'm good.
He's trying to.
Counselor Rodriguez, then Counselor Basie.
Thank you. I would, just to reply to that, last comment there or concern. Because this deadline is so tight, I probably feel that she might, there's more chance of her being successful.
Fair enough.
Because it's such a tight. And we've never done it before. But the other thing I wanted to mention on these vendor vehicles in these parks. Are they going to be limited to the parking lots? Because I have concerns, like when you're talking about noise disturbance, things like that. I want to make sure they're in an area where it's expected that there's noise and disturbance and not. Highland Glen is a highly sensitive area, for example, and obviously they've been limited to hydro water no matter where they were in that park. But I just want to make sure it's not going to be in an area because of that flow through traffic with the boat load. It's already gets congested with the boat trailers and stuff. I mean, obviously, a lot of people would love to probably be able to get some French fries there. But, I just want to make sure we're being, I don't know what the plan is for what the restrictions are in these parks where they can go.
Thank you, Your Worship. In the proposal, we're asking them to propose where they would like the truck. But as Adam said, that's negotiable with staff to suggest a better location. Like they have to provide where they think it should be. And if it's in the middle of the parking lot, that's not gonna work. If there's a better location, then staff can figure that out. We haven't gone to all the parks and said, this is where we want it, this is where you have to be. But staff would definitely be approving where that location is.
Actually, staff has ventured out to Highland Glen to determine where the best
That
spot
one,
would be.
yeah.
And we looked that there is a gate that leads to the green space where there's a bit of a gravel pad there. We determined that is probably the safest and best location because it's away from the beach area. It's also away from the parking lot so that it doesn't have conflicts with traffic. So
The boat launch parking lot, the upper parking lot.
no, it's still in the lower parking lot, but it's in the green space towards the washroom where there is a access gate and a gravel trail that used to be there for vehicles to pull in to pump out the washrooms. So that is likely where we put that, just to make sure that that it's not in the way of the use of the lake, nor in the way of the boat launch. But again, we were looking for them to make proposals, but if we don't like where their proposal is, it's definitely our property and it's our jurisdiction to tell them, well, we like it and don't like it.
So where does that process happen? After it's awarded or before it's, you know what I'm saying? Because then what if you award it and then you can't agree to that? And then what do you do then, right? You know what I mean?
I would think that in most cases, as long as they're in the park and for Highland Glen, as long as we weren't putting them at the top of the hill as people enter, it'd probably be fine. The middle parking lot, I probably still wouldn't want to see a chip truck there. It's kind of out in its own. I would guess that the only place that makes sense for a vendor vehicle would be down at the beach area, provided it's located in an area that's not going to conflict with traffic or pedestrians.
Thank you.
Councilor Vacy?
Yes, the councillor and Claverin's comments that when we look at the selection of each one and where they're going, that'll be part of we're not gonna put a hamburger French fry truck on one side of the road and another one on the other side. That'll be taken into consideration when. Yeah, and one that just doesn't fit the criteria at all. Just turn it down.
Councilor Bolton, anything from you? Councilor Wolvett?
Just a question. I know the issue was in this report about generators running and making noise. Do we have any plans on possibly putting a plug-in where there's hydro available? Like I know you look at your chip truck in Petrolia there down in the valley there, like they have a plug-in and an actual meter. So they pay their own hydro. Do we have, so if we got access to a plug like Lamb Recton, probably access there. So would we be looking at possibly doing that if we could to eliminate the noise?
Thank you, your worship. Yes, Lamrecton already has the plug that worked with Anita's cart. If an adapter is required for someone to connect, I believe it says in there they're required to provide that. But I believe there's one at Lakeshore Park as well.
Yes.
And McKay, we had talked about. It does not have one,
Currently, they don't,
but it
but
was,
there's other local community groups who would like to see power out there.
Yep.
So that might be a future project down the road, but at this time, it would likely be a generator in that area.
yeah, and Highland Glen, we will not be able to do that, or more than likely.
No hydro there,
So
but
the other ones are pretty much serviced already.
so just to follow up on that, sorry to keep going here, but the $3,000, would that cover their hydro also? Cause no, they'd have to pay on top of that.
Yes, their hydro's included in that.
Yeah, that's
No
kind
additional bill.
right. That's kind of what I thought. Okay, that's thanks.
So Vacy?
Weird.
But by doing this bylaw, that's also giving Parks and Rec the funds to exploit, you know,
Yep.
like say, if it's going over well, then we've got the money to put a plug in, and then we've got we gotta start somewhere, so it's, we're not prepared to put the plugs in and then.
Nobody showed up.
Deputy, anything from you before I call for the
No.
vote?
No comments. Good.
Okay. Good conversation, good discussion. Call for the vote. All those in favor? Okay, let's go to item 9.1 bylaws. I have a motion by Councillor Vacy, seconded by Councillor Bojan. Bylaw 3 of 2024 being a bylaw to establish fees and user charges be taken as having been read 3 times, finally adopted, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the said bylaw accordingly. And that bylaw 135 of 2023 be repealed. Any questions on that? Councilor Rodriguez?
Thank you, your worship. So I think I just had 2. The wind turbine, is that new and or replacement? So is it just, obviously it was the fee established for new, but what about replacements?
Quick forward check.
Thank you, your worship. Sorry, you mean a replacement of a turbine?
Mhm.
I would assume it would be the same fee. You would have a demolition fee and then a new fee.
Okay. Okay, it just didn't specify, so I wasn't. Sure, and then, water assessments. Why is there a difference between Plympton and Wyoming? I guess was my question there.
Mr. Swansky, answer.
Mr. Savansky?
Okay, G, looking at Madam Rodriguez.
Oh, yes.
Um,
Sorry. Where's the chart? Okay.
There is different water fees, so I want to make sure I'm speaking to
It
it.
was near the bottom, near the end of the report. It said something about Wyoming old lots and brackets.
oh, yeah. Water assessment frontage fees and sewer assessment frontage fees, different for Wyoming, different for Plimpton, is what she's
Yeah.
referring to.
E23 and E24, as well as E21 and 22. Those fees are generally established under bylaw, previous bylaws. So they are not changed, and that's why there's difference in fees. Most of the water mains and sanitary sewers in Plympton, Wyoming were installed under a Local Improvement Act. And the Local Improvement Act bylaw of that time establishes the connection fee moving forward.
Okay, but.
Sure.
We're amalgamated. And those were old established fees. Why are they not more in line now across the board? Why? Because it's substantially different between.
So it would have been the year before I took over as Director of Public Works. The previous director sat down with the Environmental Services Committee, then at the time Water and Sewer, and they looked at three options: maintaining the existing bylaws as is, putting a flat fee across the board for all properties, or incorporating water and sewer into development charges. The Environmental Services Committee of the day determined that it would make the most sense to leave the bylaws in place and to move forward with those bylaws as is.
I just don't hear any justification as to why, just because something was, leave it as is. I just don't hear any justification as to why Plimpton is paying so much more.
Because
Wyoming,
that was established under bylaw
no, I get it.
based on the cost to construct those water mains. And the cost to construct a water main in high density areas such as Wyoming is much less than to construct a water main in lower density areas such as the rural area. That's why there's those major differences for sections of Wyoming.
Okay, so are we still considered rural in where the development area is? Cause it looks like
It does
it's.
not play any effect. Because it's an existing bylaw, we have to follow that existing bylaw unless council were to direct staff to appeal those bylaws and come up with a different system. So unfortunately, staff don't have the ability to change them unless we're directed to look into doing so. Which again, in 2016, we looked at and we're directed to leave them as is.
So we'd have to look at a bylaw review, not this.
We would probably bring back that 2016 report, bring a new flavor to it, given the current government's abilities to waive DC fees and everything else. And it would require a whole new report based on the former findings.
And then my final was on for the Cam Lackey fees. There's a $1,500 deposit, refundable deposit. I remember last year when there was discussion on this, there was some about Stag and Does. Did Stag and Does drop out of the eligibility criteria?
Chair, if I may.
Yes, go right ahead.
In discussion with the Parks and Recreation Committee, the Optimist Club and staff, it was determined that the groups as a whole would no longer support Stag and Does. The few Stag and Does that were hosted at the facility resulted in notable minor damages to the property, and therefore there was no value in hosting them as they were detrimental to our infrastructure.
Are we allowed to hold a portion when you put in a refundable deposit? Are you allowed to say less an administration fee for holding?
There's a rental fee already, so.
No. For the deposit, there's administration
Right.
involved in taking a deposit and then refunding a deposit. There's administration time involved in there. That portion, the administration portion. Could it not be recoupable?
Is that reflected in the rental fee?
We want to reflect that in the rental fee, not the deposit itself. Yes, and then we are working our way towards cost recovery, but most facilities of this nature are challenging to get to full cost recovery.
Okay. Hearing no other questions, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, staff, council, we're gonna go to the supplementary one, which is 9.2. It's moved by Councillor Wilbett, seconded by Councillor Van Claveren, that bylaw 1/2024 being a bylaw to authorize the borrowing of $1 million as temporary financing for the town be taken as having been read 3 times, finally passed, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign said bylaw accordingly. Our treasurer is with us. Treasurer, if you can just give us a brief update. I believe this is something we do every year.
Well, the borrowing bylaw is put in place at the first of every year in case of an emergency or something that we would need to borrow money. Otherwise, borrowing money would come through the budget, right? But this is just to allow us to do something in case of emergency.
Questions? Good. Call for the vote. All those in favor? Okay, council, let's go to item, sorry, clerk, is there any correspondence?
No action required this evening.
Okay, let's go to item 11.1. Moved by Councillor Van Claveren, seconded by Councillor Wilbett, the correspondence items A to P. That's A to P, relating to recommended reading and routine approval and information items not otherwise addressed by resolution, be noted as received by the Plympton-Wyoming Council and filed accordingly. So we have quite a few there, council. I'm going to begin on my left. Councillor Wilbett, anything for you to pull or address?
I think 2 or 3 of them, I would think H, greens and drains update or reading.
Correct?
Next one I got is a K. Clearview Township Cemetery Administration Management Support. This is to do with cemeteries that are no longer in use. Under the law, these inactive cemeteries are private group don't want to maintain them, or a church. A lot of them are around churches. They're turned back to the municipality. You have no choice. You take them back, and a lot of these older cemeteries have very little or no money for perpetual care. So the taxpayer of the municipality involved will have to take that on. We've had this discussion in cahoots with Warwick. I was part of it, trying to get the government to address the situation throughout, not only Ontario, but Canada, under the cemetery bylaws. To step up to the plate here. The cost of keeping these up, as you very well know, is very expensive for the municipality. So this is what they're talking about here. So I'd just like to see us kind of support that. They want this to go back to a government organization to fund these inactive cemeteries rather than the municipality. You can read it yourself, but I think you should respond to it.
So, Councillor, you'd like to have a response back on that item?
Yeah.
Okay, and the first one you talked about, H, is that just as an information to?
It is, and it's what you're already dealing with.
Correct, and just as an update, we do have a meeting at Roma.
Yes.
Sabansky and I, as well as Mayor Case and CAO Gubbles there, that we're going to be meeting with the deputy minister over there, so.
Yeah.
There's an FYI for you.
And I guess the final one that I would bring up, and I do believe we just discussed this at that December's council meeting, City of Greater Sudbury amend the Ontario Safety Act definition of employer. This is to do, as you all know, I have to go into a lot of detail here, but even though we have contractors and somebody gets hurt or killed, you can be sued because that now is can be determined as your employer. Adam knows more about it than I do, but I think it's something we certainly need to recognize because we get a lot of contractors.
So what would you like to do with number L? Is that an FYI or do you want?
Well, I was looking for a little bit of direction from Adam because I know you guys are already probably dealing with it, but it's more for information for me.
Okay, Mr. Sabansky?
Thank you, Councillor Wolbert and Mayor Atkinson. We've been in contact with Intact Public Entities. It's our insurance company. They're well aware of this issue. Intact is working with the lawyers who argued the case to develop a fact sheet for municipalities on how to best proceed. They're expecting that fact sheet will be ready in the coming months, and we'll make sure to provide it to all municipalities to present to their councils with ways to reduce their liability in regards to construction projects. The challenge we're into here is the reason you hired a general contractor back in the day is 'cause then you pushed all your liability onto them. They were under care and control of the job site. They looked after all the subcontractors. The engineer in the town just stood back and observed. What the courts are now saying is that the town and the engineer should not sit back and observe, they should direct. So what the courts are essentially saying is now instead of the constructor, the contractor being what's referred to under the act as the constructor, the person overall responsible, they're suggesting the owner, in this case, municipalities, are actually the constructor and are responsible for the overall health and safety of the entire site and all persons on that site. So it's quite a shift on contract law, and it will result in a lot more lawsuits and litigation than the municipalities have seen in the past.
And a lot more work on our part. We'd have to have somebody assigned to ensure they're doing all the right things. So, yeah, it's.
Well, and inherently the challenge is you have a full-time engineer on site, but they're not gonna sit there and necessarily look for liability. They're looking to make sure the job is constructed as per the specifications in the contract. So now you're gonna have one of your own staff or another contractor on site, making sure that the contractors are working at all times in a safe manner. So yes, it will in the end lead to likely more staff time on site or additional contractors who now are subbing out different responsibilities. So I'm looking forward to that fact sheet, and myself or Mr. De Silva will likely bring it back with some recommendations for council.
So saying that it's information for everybody here to keep up to speed. It's already being dealt with, so I don't think there's anything we can do here. It's Sudbury talking about it, but it's already being dealt with. So good information.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Counselor Van Claveren?
I have none further to pull. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, Counselor Rodriguez?
Mine were pretty much the same as Councillor Levesque. I did want clarification though on item L that we were just talking about. With the definition of employer. You were gonna pull it for resolution or support?
He wasn't sure.
I think, well,
No, and then it kind of shifted to we're going to be doing something to send out to reduce, but it really is different what we're doing. We're supporting it, but we're also going to send out have something prepared that we can share with all municipalities on how to reduce our risks. So I think we still should support it.
Your worship.
I do, yes, go ahead.
To clarify, I was speaking more to the situation as in general. Sudbury's letter is motion requesting the support of other municipalities to fight against the ruling of the Supreme Court.
Correct.
So given the adverse effects on the municipality for construction projects moving forward, supporting the letter would be probably a reasonable choice.
I would say so after reading the final paragraphs and what we're supporting, I would say that they good support.
Okay, so you want to support it?
Yeah, and if you read those final the middle paragraph, it's asking them to relieve us. It's more responsible the person that's on the site and the contractor, not the municipality. So yes.
Okay. Counselor? Counselor Basie?
Yes, sir. I would like to pull J, Township of Economy. And they are bringing up the fact that anyone with a criminal record can still run for town council and mayor and everything else. And they're asking that to be changed. And that anyone without a pardon cannot run for public office, which I think is ludicrous that they could in the first place, so. Let's support that.
I think you got the deputy's interest on that one.
Something we don't know, Nettie.
No, I really agree with you, but I, I don't even know why it's an issue because, well, like, why would, and you allow anybody with a criminal record to even run, but that's okay.
That was mine.
I'll come back to you, Bob.
It's on this topic.
Okay. Mike, anything else?
No.
Okay. On this topic?
Yeah, it is. Criminal record, just gonna take you back a little bit in history with cannabis. One of my brothers, who's no longer with us, was charged with possession of cannabis, which was a criminal record. At the time, now, now it's not. Now, what I'm reading into this, might be enough whatsoever. If you're a criminal, you should be on the council, but, unless you, had a pardon right to this day, that's still on your criminal record. And even trying to go across the border, if you'd been charged with possession, no way, back you go. So this specifically talks about, unless you get pardoned, which a lot of people are not pardoned, they still carry that possession of cannabis. I believe, I don't know all the details. So this is based on a pardon, so it's kind of, I agree, you shouldn't be criminals here, but on the other hand, if you had some of that stuff back in history that made you, give you a criminal record, you're, it's fair because it's no longer a criminal offense, right? So they would have to go and ask for a pardon.
That's my point. You'd have to do, if you're planning on running for,
Yeah,
I assume, I don't know if a DUI is the same
yeah,
thing, but
yeah.
that kind of thing, you're gonna have to do your homework before you.
Guess I better leave. No, I just.
Anything else, Cal?
Points up that.
Yeah, no, I
Maybe
see.
wants to speak to that.
Deputy?
Yeah, isn't it that you can get that record expunged, but you have to follow through with it yourself. It's like, it's not an automatic. So if you really want to run and you get that expunged, you can still run. There you go.
You seem to be knowledgeable on this, deputy. That's
Well,
good.
I've heard it from some other people. I'm not personally involved in that, but
Yeah, I don't know that.
Okay, Councilor Bojan, anything?
Nothing further, thank you.
All right. I just will comment on the Lambton Farm Safety and thank Councilor Wolbeck for continuing to act as a representative there. We certainly appreciate that, Bob.
You sir.
Okay, excuse me, motion by Councilor Van Claveren, seconded by Councilor Wolbeck. Correspondence items A to P relating to recommended reading and routine approval. Information items not otherwise addressed by resolution be noted as received for the Plympton-Wyoming Council and filed accordingly. Save and accept for items J, K, and L. All those in favor?
We need a second, which one, first one? This is one, second, second one, and then for the third one.
Okay, the first one that I have on item K, we have moved by Councilor Wolbeck, but I'm looking for a seconder on that.
Township.
I'll second that.
Cemetery.
Oh, cemetery.
Councilor Van Claveren, it's appropriate. Military board members.
Totally, stick together.
A motion by Councilor Wolbeck, seconded by Councilor Van Claveren, that council support correspondence item K from the Clearview Township regarding cemetery administration management support. All those in favor? Carried. We have a motion by Councillor Wolvette, seconded by Councillor Rodriguez, that council support correspondence item L from the city of Greater Sudbury regarding amendment to the Occupational Health and Safety Act to clarify the definition of employer. All those in favor? Carried. And I have a motion with relating to item J. I have a mover, but I need a seconder on that one. Councillor Rodriguez. Moved by Councillor Vacy, seconded by Councillor Rodriguez, that council support correspondence item J, the township of Kami regarding pardons required for municipal councillors with criminal records. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, let's go to new business. Councillor Wolvette,
No, sir.
Councillor Van Claveren,
Nothing for me, sir.
Deputy Mayor,
Nothing from me, sir.
Councillor Rodriguez,
No, sir.
no posted notes.
There's lots of person.
Okay, Councillor Vacy.
Yes, your worship, I've received numerous calls about a letter that we had sent out north end of Wyoming concerning trailers in a laneway. That's part of a bylaw that we have. That is that one of the bylaws that is being reviewed, so we can discuss this in a future time.
Yes, it is. I will defer to Mr. Sabansky because I think several of us have received not only letters, phone calls, but people visiting in person. I don't want to help take you down your Christmas decorations.
Thank you, your worship, and Councillor Vacy. So yes, planning staff issued a letter in regards to the zoning bylaw just before Christmas. Staff did receive a complaint in regards to the trailers in the vicinity of the notification, which did not meet the intent of the zoning bylaw. It is this council's practice in the past that we only enforce our bylaws upon complaint, and we only enforce it in the area of the complaint. I.e., if we got a tall grass complaint in one area of town, we would not issue a tall grass complaint to every area with tall grass in town. The bylaw as it sits today is very intrusive, and a number of the residents have took an issue with it. It also has an associated fine with it. Staff has no intention to lay that fine in the near term. We will be working with any resident who's found not to be in compliance to educate them in regards to what the zoning bylaw says and to help them find a way into compliance or a temporary solution. The zoning bylaw was approved shortly after amalgamation, and it is quite out of date. When the zoning bylaw was made, very few people had travel trailers or ATV trailers, etc., in their front yard. It was a rarity more than the norm. It is becoming closer to the norm now that people have recreational trailers of some sort in their front yard. So what we're encouraging the public to do who find that the bylaw is overly restrictive is that we will be doing a comprehensive review and amendment to our zoning bylaw this year. The tender for that closes shortly. It's been released by the county through their planning staff to have a third-party planning consultant carry that out for us. And we're encouraging all the public to voice their concerns if they feel that the zoning bylaw no longer meets the needs of the community. So we can definitely look at that section of the bylaw during that review to ensure it meets the needs of the community.
Great answer.
Councillor Rodriguez.
Thank you. I didn't have nothing, but then you talked about that. So as part of the review of whatever you're talking about, in there, is there something in relation to those right-of-ways in Wyoming that used to be used for ambulances and stuff that now hold infrastructure? Is that part of
Through the chair, if I may. Those are alleyways.
alleyways? Thank
In
you.
legal sense, they are actually municipal road allowances. So they are not subject to the zoning bylaw. They are town property for all intents and purposes.
Well, that's interesting. Sorry, because back a year and a half ago, when I was several people in that area lived adjacent these things, were having constant problems with them. And I think I did an inquiry with yourself. No, it was Miss Tripp. sorry, and, there was some sort of bylaw that applied to the use of those.
Because they are alleyways, which makes them as road allowances, they do fall under the streets bylaw and all the provisions of the streets bylaw.
So what does that mean? Because there's so many people complaining about different uses, people using them for parking lots, nefarious activities happening in them, that are disturbing.
Various activities would be a policing matter. Parking on them would not be permitted without permission of the town through the processes in that streets bylaw. And occupation of those alleyways is also not permitted unless an encroachment agreement is in place.
If I can just add to that, your worship, and in the same way that we talk about the zoning bylaw and receiving a complaint and investigating with the trailers, if someone had a concern about that, other than nefarious activity, which is OPP, they could bring that to the town and we would review the streets bylaw and act on a complaint basis. So if someone is having issue with that, they should contact the town and make a complaint.
So there's no thought in the future to change the use definition of those alleyways because they have infrastructure in them. They're not streets in the modern day sense of the word. Should they possibly be revisited as to what they should be defined as to help protect them, because they really are being used for like cabling now and maybe storm drains and stuff. So you really don't want them to be treated as a street. You know what I mean?
There is, in many cases, there are storm sewers underneath them. There's certainly private utilities running through them from Bell. If we were to look at alternatives, i.e. if we were to make it private property owned by the town, we would have to grant easements for all that infrastructure to it. If it's a road allowance, all the utility companies have the rights to use it through franchise agreements. If we were to make it private property, they would lose those rights and we would have to likely grant them an easement to ensure that our residents can maintain their existing telecommunication services. The other option would be to surplus the lands, but even if we surplus them, the new owner would have to provide an easement to allow, again, their neighbors to continue to access telecommunications and other services.
So are closed right of ways is treated the same under streets bylaws?
No,
So.
a closed road allowance
Allowance.
is a section of road that is owned by the municipality but has never been opened for public use. Therefore, a closed road allowance is under the care and control of the person who uses it to access their homes. And no person can use the closed road allowance to access their homes without the permission of the town.
Thank you.
Councilor Busy?
Well, that's all I have. Thank you.
Gordon?
Nothing for me, thank you.
All right. Good. Okay, the next item is number 13. We're gonna be going to into a closed session, going in camera. For those that are joining with us virtually, I thank you for being with us. We'll be coming back out within a half hour to close down the meeting. A motion by Councilor Van Claveren, seconded by Councilor Wolvette. Council move into an in-camera meeting of council pursuant to section 239. The Municipal Act 2001 is amended for the following reasons. Item A, solicitor client privilege. Section 239, bracket 2, bracket F, advice subject to solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose.
Sorry, could we just change the seconder, Councilor Wolvett?
Yes.
The conflict, so he likely shouldn't.
I
second
did
the
pick that
motion.
up.
Okay. Do we have a seconder to go into close? Alex?
Alex? I was gonna. Pick that up.
Everyone went.
Okay, all those in favor? Carried.
Is that the only item you have in closed?